at night. I know I've lost the fight to erase your face, my mind. Awake, I lie here staring up beyond the sky.
Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I'm retweeting. Gotta retweet first.
Good call. Retweets. I need to put our Twitter handles in the tweets. I always forget to do that because I have it automated now. So I need to put our Twitter handle in there.
Mm-hmm. We're up to 143. See, I even used the wrong number before.
You didn't. Oh, what did you say?
I think I said 144.
Nope. Yeah, 143.
All right, ready? And we're off.
It's all yours.
You're listening to PHP Ugly episode 144. I'm somewhat of a host, John Congdon. With me is Eric Van Johnson. Don't say anything. It's okay. I got this. And Tom Rideout.
Hey!
Bob Dylan is the OG mumble rapper.
I do not know why you did not say anything.
You didn't give me that chance to say anything.
He literally asked you to say something.
No, I told him not to.
He literally said, don't say anything. What are you talking about? Are you not paying attention?
He doesn't listen to the show. I don't blame him. I am dressed for bed. If you're watching live, I got my jammies on, ready to go.
He's all set to be tucked in.
Exceptionally cozy.
What's the occasion? Stand up for a second, because everybody's got to get the full picture. I got the look at that, head to toe, red and black flannel. If you're just listening to the podcast, this is why you want to tune in to the feed, because there are visual gags
for you. Sure. No, the story behind it is after work today, I go out and my kids are in their jammies. They've been in their jammies all day because it was a rainy day and my wife just stayed home and the kids wanted to. So she's like, sure, go for it. So when I got out of work, I ran in and threw these on to participate in jammy day with them. I thought I would keep it on for the show and make a good story out of it.
That's real sweet of you. So happy you did that. My life feels more complete now that I've seen you in jammies.
Like you've never seen it before. Come on.
How is everybody's week?
Exhausting.
I feel like we just talked like last Thursday.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Weeks are flying by. I can't even... Maybe because we have a deadline looming, but weeks are just flying by right now.
Yeah,
I had
fun.
I had reports this week, which is my least favorite thing to ever work on.
Yeah.
And this was a nested report where it was a summary of collected data, and then you could click on an expanded view based off of the day or week or month or service type or system type. And so as soon as I got the report working, I go to click the expanded view and see what's in the days, and they don't match at all. So I've got it says this week we've got 25 sales, and I go look at it and it says we have 110. And that's always super pleasant.
That doesn't work out too well.
Do you guys do a lot of reports on your projects?
Yes.
Yeah, especially for the one client, we just a ton of reports.
It's easily my least favorite thing to ever work on, except for anything to do with the file system.
Why? Reports are easy. You're just pulling data out and manipulating data. I hate dealing with data input and validation, and oh god, I just get tired of that.
Depends on how the data is stored when you're pulling the reports, though, because the data inconsistency, or over here you pull it one way and over there you pull it a different way, and you end up with mismatched reports. It is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and we have to make everything time zone compliant as well. So I'm doing aggregates in MySQL where I have to convert the time zone of the created at record before I aggregate the data, which it turns out isn't that difficult, but I have to do it in 50 different ways depending on how they've chosen their drop downs. So
can you not change the input time zone first versus checking within MySQL?
I can, but the way that I'm aggregating things, I have to group it by week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to do date formatting within MySQL to make it formatted into a week shape, so that when I do a grouping function on it, everything stays together and the counts stay accurate.
Gotcha.
And I just finished it today. I just got it actually working today, and then cut all my code out of my controller and put it in a repository pattern so that it was consolidated in one place and could get reused and stuff. And it's a 4-day project. It started Monday. Not a fan.
Nah.
What have you guys been up to this week?
My day started off horrible. Like 6:30 a.m. just getting paged left and right.
Man, he comes into the office and he has I think it's PagerDuty that gives off this
Morse
what's it
code.
called? Morse code. It
like
was just
the SOS. Like
I heard him walking in the door. Beep, 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 beep.
Is it like a Nagios alerts or what?
PagerDuty. So yeah,
it's PagerDuty.
So Nagios is just one thing that feeds into PagerDuty. There's a bunch of other pieces, but there was a big code release last night and of a new feature, and of course, people started using it this morning, and one of the queries just wasn't optimized right, and just took down systems. It was a pain in the butt.
How was it? Are you able to share how it wasn't optimized? Like what? Because I heard you guys fixed it, right?
Yeah. So basically, ORs in SQL statements can kill a query.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was basically a duplicate check. So it's a contact importer. You're bringing in a Excel file or a CSV file, and you're looking to see if the contact already exists based on email address or phone number. And the person who wrote it with an OR, which was very slow, especially when somebody has millions of contacts. Changing it to 2 single queries of hey, does this email address exist, or does this, and then in a separate one, does this phone exist, makes it a sub-second query twice. So it sucks you're doing 2 queries, but you're not doing an OR.
Huh. You should be able to put parentheses around the 2 or clauses, and it should do the same thing.
I mean, we had that, but it's.
I say still
wasn't
or though.
performing.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Why would that help the performance, Thomas?
The way that MySQL breaks down queries is very literal.
Mm-hmm.
So it decides early on in the execution if it needs to have a temporary table and export results to a temporary table.
Mm.
So there must have been a conflict somewhere else where it decided it needed a temp table and it was doubling your data or doubling the actions.
Yeah, I mean, it was joining 4 tables together, looking in one
Yeah.
for email, looking in another one for a phone number. It just wasn't good, and changing it to 2 separate queries made it much faster. So
Well, I'd be willing to take a look at the query for you and see if I could figure out what went wrong.
No, it's slow enough as it is. I don't think you need your help.
I still love raw SQL. I still spend so much of my day just in the CLI typing out reports for myself,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what the data should look like based off of the data that's already there. And I don't know how people can use the GUI tools for MySQL.
I don't know how that's a statement. How can you? I mean, I applaud you for having the command line kung fu to go into MySQL, but yeah, the GUIs, especially for something like that where you're just quickly navigating through rows and rows of data. Why wouldn't you use a GUI? I mean,
Thomas, I used to be the same way. I love the CLI, but once I started using the GUI just for simple table traversal and changing rows quickly, the GUI was a lot nicer. And I still have access to a SQL console and can run custom queries.
Yeah. Well, I don't
I've-
ever want to. I don't ever want to like change data without a command, though. I don't want to be editing a box where there's a value.
Yeah,
So-
I understand.
I've been using Table Plus more and more for a couple
Actually,
reasons.
I have a question for you on that. In SQL Pro, when there's a foreign key, which is another reason I like the GUI, by the way, Thomas, I was able to click on a little arrow next to it and then go to the table reference. Can you do that in Table Plus?
I want to say yes, but I don't know right now. Not without looking at it, but I feel like I've done that.
I'll have to check that out.
But one of the things I like about Table Plus, and one of the reasons why I'm starting to use it more and more, besides the fact that it's a client for more than MySQL, is that it allows you to make changes to the database, and it does the whole. It doesn't commit them. It doesn't commit the changes until you actually press the commit button. I mean, you don't have to set it up that way. That's how mine's set up, and I think that's how it's set up by default, where you can like delete rows or change data, and it just kind of gives you a color indicator that hey, this table's change, this rows change, and it lets you look at the data for a second, and then as long as you're happy with it, you can actually commit those changes. I really like that feature. Especially when you're like deleting rows, it's like, oh wait, no, that's too much. I didn't want to delete all those rows.
Yeah, and I need to get in there. I know I started setting it up yesterday. I just haven't committed to using it, and it's probably one of those things, just like an IDE, where you have to commit to using it for a week or two to get used to it.
Yeah, one of the things John and I just learned this week about Table Plus. I'd seen it before, but I didn't really explore it. We have a lot of developers that work with us, and we're all sharing kind of the same access to the same databases. And Table Plus actually allows us to export groups of databases, and actually you can export individual databases too. But
the connection credentials.
Great. I'm sorry. Yeah, the whole connection configuration. So we bring up a new client who has a couple database connections, dev, staging, production, and somebody configures it in Table Plus. They can actually export it and then share that with other developers. It just saves time. I know it's probably not the most secure thing, but
I'm sure it could be worse.
Yeah.
It sounds similar to Postman's groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Except
That's
Postman, if you have an account, you can actually sync it up to their servers where you're not going to want to do that with your database credentials.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
you
if
have
I don't know if I can anymore. Every time I launch Postman, it gives me an error about being deprecated. And
We
it
got to
tells
get
me
up to the right version. We just went through this because we have a team account on Postman. The way they're handling teams now in Postman requires everybody to be on at least a minimum version of like Postman 7, I think it was.
which I still couldn't find. I'm on 6.7 or whatever.
You have to update in the app.
I tried. I went through all those steps, and it keeps telling me I'm up to date. Yep.
Oh, you're the only one having that problem. It's weird.
I shared the screenshot in Slack recently.
Yeah.
It's almost as if I saw that and brought it up on purpose.
Well, nice for you to be obvious about it. Good job.
Doing my job.
We're making sure I point out that I'm doing my job.
I've been dealing with Laravel policies and gates last few days, and I don't know how I managed to avoid doing deeper dives into policies and gates before. I just seem to have avoided it. I guess the stuff I was doing was pretty simplistic or something, but man.
What is it? Because I've never gotten into that stuff.
It just allows you to define authentication on a more granular level. Is it authentication? Authorization on a more granular level. So essentially, what you do is you actually define policies for your models, and then like for every action in a model, the whole CRUD system of a model, you can define who has access to do that. So the big example of you can view all posts, but you can only edit your own post. That's the sort of thing that you could put into a policy where you say, hey, to update the post model, the user ID has to match the author ID, sort of thing.
And that was one of the big announcements of 5.8, right, in Laravel, was a little more streamlined.
Auto-discovery. Yeah. Auto discovery of policies. Yeah, that's a big one. Laracon online. Thomas, did you catch Laracon online?
No, you know what? I didn't. Is the whole thing over now?
Yeah, it was just a one day.
It was just a one day. It was one day, and I gotta say I can't complain about it. It was like a $25 ticket. I think I don't actually remember now. We actually had a viewing party here at the office. So I came into the office at 6:30 because the online conference started at 9 a.m. Eastern time, so EST. So I figured I'd come in a little early, get things set up.
I did hear the whining about that. There was a lot of whining about that.
It's one of those things that you're just not going to please everybody. Their goal was to cover as much as the Europe and US as they could, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure that they started at a time where people in Europe could still watch, and then the people on the West Coast, unfortunately, it was an early morning. So the morning before, a lot of people were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna come in, maybe 8, but I'm not gonna be there for the start." So I come rolling in around 6:30 because I went and got some donuts and got some coffee, so our coffee machine didn't have to work overtime, and just some general housekeeping things. And I've already got like 2 developers in the developers den watching the conference. I'm like, holy crap, you guys are already here. It was good. Some good talks. I mean, the reason they were in is one of the first talks was Freck talking about event sourcing, and it was a game changer.
Really? I'm gonna want to hear more about that tomorrow.
Yeah, or we can talk about it now because we're talking
Yeah,
about things.
no, we can. I
Yeah,
meant more.
yeah.
I meant more about specifically our project.
Yeah. Well, and that was it. We had we were looking we had already started down the path of proof for the project we're working on, and our project is broken into a couple of services right now. Accounting is one that event sourcing is kind of mandatory, right? And we're wanting to use it. So that's the one that's gone down the path of proof. The other piece of the application, of course, we're starting to look at now, like, okay, we're going to use event sourcing here. And Frick's implementation of event sourcing was a lot more simplistic than our implementation of proof. So he was using event sauce for Frick's implementation, and again, we were using another implementation called proof for the project. So, anyways, the where we had worked with the team for several weeks to kind of get everybody's head around the concept of event sourcing, um, and maybe that history helped with this, but we still had developers who just quote unquote weren't getting it, like it just wasn't sinking in. And for whatever reason, whatever Frick said in his presentation, his implementation of event source, they got it. It made a lot of sense. So essentially, what we did is, I mean, this just happened on yesterday, right? Yeah, yeah. It was yesterday.
Yeah.
Was it yesterday?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this just happened yesterday. So yeah, I mean, we're still filling things out, but what we came away with is I kind of put it on the developer who's working on the accounting system to say, okay, take a look at this other implementation, see if it meets our requirements, because already, he already identified, hey, I'm not sure how you do snapshots with this. We'd gone down the event source path before. It didn't have snapshots. He didn't talk about snapshots. Everybody says roll your own snapshots. So he's actually, because he has the most experience with it, he's kind of taking another look at event sauce and figuring out, okay, do we want to pivot on what we're doing with the accounting system and go over to event sauce? Or do we stay with proof on the accounting system? And then again, I'm kind of putting it on his shoulders to give me the feedback of, let's go ahead and just use event sauce for all the other less critical things that we want to event source because it's a simpler implementation. Or if he would rather just stick with a like for like, say, hey, we're already doing it this way for accounting, we're just do it this way across the board. So
I
we're
think,
still kind of in that evaluation stage.
yeah, I think the consultant we hired to talk to us about event sourcing brought that specific thing up about event sauce. It didn't have snapshots, and proof did.
Yeah, and even with Frick's demo, and we were watching, I was watching it along with them. The question came up of playback, and Frick contends, and you hear this, from other people as well, is playback isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't, memory is so cheap now, and compute systems are so strong that playing back events really doesn't have that big of an impact. But we start talking about our client, and our client's been in business for 15 years. It is going to be an impact. We're talking about several events, thousands and thousands of events a day, and we just can't help but think, yeah, it will. We're
You're
going
not
to hit
playing,
a wall.
you're not playing back every event. You're playing back the events for that aggregate. So it's like
Right.
your user record, and I play
Right,
events
but
just for that.
but if you've been a client, if you've been a customer of our client for 10 years, I mean that can be a lot of data.
Yeah, it can be, especially
So
you're trying to pull reports on all of those users. So
Right. So and that's where snapshots come into play. And again, it's not that snapshots aren't something you can do in Event Sauce. It's just Event Sauce doesn't have a implementation within their framework. They just say, hey, just do your own version of snapshots. So we're looking into that. But I mean, that was just the first talk. There were several really good talks throughout the day. There was even one on I forget her name, but I really became a fan of hers at the last LarryCon as well. But she did a talk on blockchain, Bitcoin and blockchain, and coding to blockchain with Laravel. And again, this is something that we've had clients ask about. Leveraging the blockchain and how they can leverage it.
You might have to send me that talk.
It was really, really good.
Samantha Geitz.
So based on
Samantha, yes, good one.
Our client conversation on Tuesday, where there was a bunch of talk around blockchain, was there any linkage there with what we were talking about on our client meeting and this?
So the issue, the issue still comes back to public records, right? Yeah. We've talked one of the implementations. So I hate when I cut myself off, but I do it all the time. I apologize. Our client actually has some very good use cases for blockchain because the business that they're in, because of what they're trying to do. They have good use cases of blockchain. One of the use cases they have is around this concept of evidence. I've talked about this in the past, where they want to be able to kind of seal evidence and prove that evidence hasn't been tampered with. It's a good use of the blockchain, but again, the way blockchain works, it's like, well, we can't put all the information on the blockchain, so we've talked about like hashing records and putting the hashes out there and that sort of thing. It's kind of the same thing. It's like where this client does have good use cases for blockchain, they have a tendency to also want to go overboard and use blockchain for everything. And you're back to the same kind of scenario of, well, do you want all your records out on the blockchain? Because I don't think you do. You don't want people seeing the records. So
you have inadvertently led me to one of my favorite stories of the week.
Okay.
It was announced this week that the digital signatures on PDFs are fundamentally broken.
Okay. That you got there from talking about LarryCon Online and blockchain, huh?
From this idea of signing something as a proof of its non-changing attribute. So what ended up happening was a group that created a website, pdf-insecurity.org, was able to produce a PDF of a refund they received from Amazon for $1 trillion. And this is important because these signed PDFs are legally binding. These are real supposed to be cryptographically secure documents that have real legal weight to them. Mm-hmm. And them being broken is another example of why I don't feel comfortable at all getting into blockchain stuff, because you're really meddling with technology and math that you don't understand, that you rely on someone else having been, honest and correct. And it's terrifying to me that I could have a system that was supposed to be secure to the extent that it was a legally binding encryption, and then someone just says, "Oh, but I broke it. Here."
Yeah, unfortunately, that hasn't happened with blockchain yet, but.
Well, there have been 51% attacks, though. I mean, there have been successful 51% attacks against all the major cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, and John actually brought that up with this client that we're talking about blockchain on as well. That was a good example.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
I was gonna say, going back to Laracon, I personally felt that Taylor continued to prove that he doesn't understand semantic versioning.
I heard you mention this, but I don't know why. I don't know what happened. Did he just go back a number?
No, he just, the way he was talking about version numbers, like he brought up the semantic versioning and how he could change and not do 5.8 and make it 6, and 5.9 would be 6.1, but was fundamentally missing the part that the major version number is when you have backward breaking changes. He made it seem like you could only get to a .9 and then you had to go to 6.0 or something. He didn't really say that. I'm making that part up, but the fundamental understanding of semver just didn't seem to be there. He acted like adding a third digit into the version number was pointless.
Oh God.
And it's like, but there's a reason for each one of those numbers, and if you follow semantic versioning,
which Composer does,
right?
And he Composer has semantic versioning.
He went into Composer in his example of, well, if we went to 6.0, you're going to be changing your Composer file this way versus that way. I don't know.
Correct. Yes, that's what you're supposed to do.
It just didn't make sense. I heard it. It made me chuckle. It frustrated me, so I shared in Slack.
I mean, his not understanding of semver in general has driven me crazy since, like, I think the 5.3 release, or since he announced the LTS project. Because we've been doing this long enough that we've talked about wanting LTS for Laravel on the podcast. Mm. And then we got it, and then it was summarily ignored. And it was like, okay.
He did say there should be a new LTS version coming up.
Well, it was funny is how he said it was funny. He goes, so that would make 5.9 LTS. So yeah, I guess 5.9 is going to be LTS. Wait a minute. More thought needs to be put into LTS. It's not LTS just because it falls in that two-year gap.
No, you just call it. Yeah, it's just this one's LTS.
He also touched on it was funny because John and I kind of like looked at each other and chuckled, and of course he didn't get back to it, but so Taylor obviously came online and was talking about all the new things in 5.8 that what's coming in the new release of 5.8, and if you've ever watched Taylor do a presentation before, he just basically pulls up Sublime, pulls up the routes web.php file, and has a bunch of examples in there that he starts to go through. So you kind of see his folder structure and everything. And he brought up the fact that for some reason, like, people don't like having their models in the root of the app folder, and a lot of people create this models directory.
Yes, I do that.
We're going to circle back on that if I have time. And John and I just kind of like looked at each other and laughed.
He doesn't like that. He thinks you're wrong for doing it.
Yeah.
But he never got back to it. At least I don't know. Back to it.
I wish he had gotten back to it, because we do. As a matter of fact, it's a practice. I feel so strongly about it. I've made it a practice of the company, and I don't typically impose too many coding standards on developers that are outside the scope of what the standard coding standard is for whatever they're working on. But that's one of the ones that I implement of, hey, you create a models directory, please. I don't understand the benefit.
From my understanding, it has to do with Active Record and how Active Record treats the models as the application.
But there's nothing else in the app folder with logic except for the model, right?
I mean, I don't know. Did the route file get moved?
Yeah, the route file's in its own folder now called routes. Controllers are in their own folder. Everything else is in its own folder except for these models that just kind of linger out there.
I mean, I want him to make the announcement that it's just like he's taking a nap. Like he's not gonna go hyper developer on Laravel for a year and just let it cool down.
Mm.
You know, Symfony announced that there was a new feature added to Twig, and it was like the biggest thing in the last 2 years that Symfony has done.
Well, I think he actually brought that up in his talk, and we've talked about it as well. I think Laravel is getting there as well. I mean, the changes between versions are getting less and less, dramatic. It's just they're just kind of becoming
Outside of deprecating half of my code base.
Well, that's when he was talking about his versioning, and like he hasn't gone to a 6 because there hasn't been a sweeping change of the code base.
Except for that one pull request that didn't include documentation or a change log.
or discussion or anything.
Yes, it took place over a period of 5 hours outside of public purview. I mean, he can say all he wants that things aren't changing, but the mailable interface appears to change backwards compatibility break every single version. There's something crazy going on. Mm-hmm. The right now we're 1 week away from Laravel 5.8 having been released, mm-hmm. and it's on 5.8.3. So there have been 3 patch fixes in 1 week.
Well, with his versioning, they may not be patches. They could be.
That's true. They could be completely backwards compatible breaking. I mean, there was a in 5.3 there was a fix for the authentication middleware, where he was calling next instead of the variable next. So if you were running 5.8.2 and you had authentication in any way, then any middleware after your authentication was broken. Like, fuck me. That is major. That's just extraordinarily bad. And because I believe all next does is increment the pointer to an array. So it was just skipping the rest of your middleware. Like, shit, that's super bad. I'm glad you caught that a week later.
That's one of those. It's something like that being included in the framework should be unit tested with expected usage.
Yeah, you think that's something a unit test would have caught?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty done with Laravel and all of its idiosyncrasies that appear to be judgment calls.
So are you stating on the podcast that you're not willingly going to do new Laravel projects, or
I will do as I'm told.
You're just not a fan of Laravel anymore.
I will be looking into Symfony and starting up some demo projects for myself in Symfony.
I can't fault anybody with that. I mean, Symfony seems like the next logical step to me. I've been giving it a lot of thought as well. I've been tempted to gravitate back to Cake PHP just to see. Yeah, it's been a while since I've used that, just to see where that's at and the implementation. But then I start to say to myself, I'm like, is that really the direction you want to go in? And I've been.
I'll tell you what. The problem with what DiegoDev is facing is that Laravel has introduced a lot of technical debt as far as the knowledge of the not employees. What's the correct word? Contractors. So what you're facing moving forward is either increasing that technical debt and becoming more and more reliant on Laravel, or
I don't agree with where you're going with that, because we didn't hire. I mean, yes, the developers that work with us are very good at Laravel because that's been our focus for the last couple of years. But they're good developers. If we pivoted to Symfony tomorrow, I mean, there would be some ramp up time, but I wouldn't. I'm not even concerned about it. Where our technical debt comes into play is the fact that we've sold clients on this and we've implemented it for clients, and that's the thing that concerns me moving forward with the whole. It's a one man show. It's Taylor, making decisions on a whim. Did we really do right by our clients by going in this direction? That's where, and
I think you did. I think you did right, but I think Taylor's not doing right by his user base.
I agree with that. But by him not doing right means we didn't do right. I mean, that's just kind of how it flows.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we are where we are. I'm still a fan of frameworks. I'm still a fan of Laravel. But I do see the flaws, and it does, as a business owner and as somebody who is entrusted by other clients to make good business decisions for them. I am questioning, the next time I recommend Laravel to another company, just because of that. I mean, end of day, it's code. End of day, if we had to freeze the framework where we are today and continue to work with it, it would be no different than had we rolled our own framework and had to live with that. So it's not it's not the absolute worst. It's just, I don't know. It's a concern. But yeah, there were more talks. The talks for Luricon Online went all day. It went from like 6 in the morning for us until about 4 in the afternoon, I think it was. And yeah, there was some. Adam Wathan did his whole Tailwind thing where he duplicated a site in Tailwind in like 30 minutes, and that was awesome. But yeah.
So what else have we got? I have a big announcement.
What
Give
is that?
it to me.
I'm not sure if you guys heard the news, but I am no longer the maintainer for IronQ for
Oh,
Laravel.
oh yeah, I heard you got fired.
It was a little more cordial than that. So if you don't know, Matt Lance, friend of the show, is the head guy, or one of the head guys at the Laravel Collective, a group which maintains abandoned Laravel code. And he contacted me today and said, "Hey, are you still interested in maintaining IronQ? Are you doing anything with it? Because I'm looking at the numbers and it gets 2 downloads a day on average. It's not, it's not really getting any traction anymore. It hasn't been supported since, I believe, 5.2. And I've been maintaining it for a little over a year, I think. And yeah, I said, we're not using it anymore. We switched over to Horizon eventually, and I can still maintain it, but it's not on my radar, really. And this was right after 5.8 was announced, so I realized I was going to have to do some kind of maintenance on it for 5.8. But he just said, it looks like the whole Laravel Collective thing is just not getting traction anymore. Our download rates and our interest rates are approaching 0. So I think we're just going to pivot the whole thing. So now if you go to the Laravel Collective website, you will get a nice blog post from Matt Lance explaining the situation, and explaining that if you want to maintain one of these projects, then go ahead and give him a call. He'll let you continue maintaining it. But the Laravel Collective is going to be switching over to new conceptual stuff from now.
Yeah. Yeah, he talked to me about it. I actually talked to Matt on a fairly regular basis, and yeah, what he said was making a lot of sense, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about that from a Laravel community perspective? It's like now these packages, when they get abandoned, who's going to maintain them?
Well, that was one of the issues, was that, we've been supporting a package so that Iron.io could sell a service to Laravel users.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to sell their service to Laravel users, then step up, maintain the package. It's that easy. And the fact that I've never been contacted by them at all is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
If I'm maintaining the API package for the currently most popular PHP framework for your PHP based queuing system, you should give me a fucking call. But yeah, we decided if they want to maintain it, they can knock themselves out. They can build support back in. They can do whatever it is they want to. For stuff like the forms package, it was really a tack-on for the Blade templates, and it doesn't need maintenance. Annotations was another one that he was focusing on. I mean, their most downloaded stuff was the HTML, the remote,
the forums, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the forms one was getting 16,000 daily downloads, whereas the next most popular one was remote, which got 900 downloads. So really the HTML one was the only one that matters. And it still exists. It's still on GitHub. It'll work with almost every version of Laravel that could be perceived coming out in the future, because it's a Blade template extension.
Mm-hmm.
So unless Blade fundamentally changes, it'll still work.
It's funny because I've been hanging out a lot more. I've been trying to stop going to Reddit, and whenever I have the urge to go to Reddit, I go to Stack Overflow and just look at new posts, new questions, and I focus on the Laravel tag, and I'm still surprised to see how many people post about that HTML in that forms package, and how many people still think it's just part of Laravel. It's like that's not a part of Laravel anymore.
It hasn't been part of Laravel since like 4.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was a great functionality that got removed for some unknown reason.
Yeah, and still seems to be a need for it, which is weird.
Kind of like helper functions. What? Let's move on.
It's a savage right hook from John Congdon.
Coming at you with his jammies and all, just coming swinging. So, I don't think we talked about last week the whole .net or .net .dev domain became a thing.
Yeah.
Where people could and they did a very interesting implementation of the domain where the more money you're willing to spend, the sooner you could actually get a domain.
Well, not just that, but they also, if you had the trademark and could provide trademark documentation, then you could register it early.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't. We are not trademarked. We should have done that. We should probably still do that. So obviously, with a company like DiegoDev, a .dev domain is very appealing, and I started following the price drop like early. Of course, the first day it was like, oh yeah, you can get Diego.dev for $2,500. I'm like, oh, and then like the next day it's
that's all. That's nothing. My
So,
parent company goes by LTI, because the pricing was not based off of the name; it was based off of the number of characters.
oh really? I didn't realize
so
that.
LTI.dev was in the range of like $12,000.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
And
Well,
why
we
did they
did-
want the .dev domain?
You know, for us developers, because we're cool like that.
So we did end up getting Diego.dev. I mean, I'm proud to say it is a actual domain. Of course, this now becomes a problem for a lot of our developers because a lot of our developers use Valet, and Valet, way back in the day, Valet, the default domain for Valet was .dev. And then when Google started enforcing the whole HTTPS for .dev domains, a lot of Valet switched the default domain to .test. The problem with that, and the problem we have specifically for the projects we're working on, is we use a lot of social media login. And with Google, ironically enough, Google doesn't allow you to define non-top level domains as callbacks for their social media login. So in order to log in using a Google account, you have to have a top level domain. So we had been using .dev for that, and now, of course, if you have .dev configured in Valet, because Valet has this DNS masquerade that it does, but if you have .dev configured in Valet, none of the .dev domains work on your system. You have to reconfigure it to get things working. It's such a pain in the ass.
Now, the big revelation for me for this whole thing was when I went to go check out the fancy new .dev domain, I found out that I'm still listed on the team.
What team? Our team? Oh, DiegoDev? Of course
Yeah,
you
so
are.
if you click on Meet the Team, you'll see all of the people who actually work at DiegoDev, and then you'll see me listed as podcaster.
Podcaster. Tom Right Up, podcaster.
Now, besides the fact that I was literally laughing out loud about this, I was wondering, when was I added as podcaster?
I believe John provided that for you. It's all in GitHub.
Yeah, it was in GitHub, and it looks like it was 2015.
It's been a while, yeah.
and I just haven't known about it.
or haven't cared. I mean, one of the two. I don't know.
I care exceptionally now. I'm very interested in this.
You'll find it on there.
Yeah, with some SEO work, I think I can make legs out of this because it's been there for a long time. I mean, I can start calling myself a podcaster, and if somebody looks up Tom Rideout podcaster, they'll get a hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The funnier one is we had our mobile developer. I had listed him as mobile development. And he's like, "Can you not list me as mobile developer or mobile development?" I'm like, "Okay, what do you want to be listed as?" He goes, "Developer, just a normal developer, nothing special." So that's what he got listed as. He's on the website as a developer, just a normal developer, nothing special.
I'm sure he's very excited about that.
And then, of course, the office assistant likes her title as well. I put her down as ambassador and herder of cats, and she just gets a complete kick out of that. That this is an actual professional business website, and that's what her title is on it.
I don't know about professional.
Yeah, professional-ish.
I've got some tech stuff I just want to go over. I know we don't do the news rundown anymore, but I wanted to go over a couple of things that I thought were interesting. Test the waters.
I think you lost the whole concept there. Okay, yeah, let's just do it your way. That's fine. What do you got?
No, you're right.
No. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm just saying we never said we weren't doing it. We were just saying that we were going to not call it out and start calling off cards, which is exactly what you just did. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Just go ahead, do your thing, man.
Have you ever noticed that PHP.net has a whole site mirrors section?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's going away. The whole concept of mirroring a website, which if you're from the 90s, you remember like every website had mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
It was what you had to do so that you could serve data across the world. I remember dialing into servers that had dial out connection quality. If you wanted to serve 10 people, you had to have 2 servers and somebody was donating their phone line for you. But they've decided, this is the modern internet. There's cloud hosting and there's all sorts of load balancing and everything you could possibly need. I don't think we need the mirror program anymore. So the mirror program is retiring, and it feels like a step forward for modernizing PHP that it's not mirroring its documentation website anymore.
It's not dependent on a bunch of people running a mirror under their desk.
Right. It feels like hitting puberty or something, where you just sort of go, "Aw, how wonderful!" Like an armpit hair.
That's so cute.
That's great. So that's happening. But the big thing for me that I'm having trouble finding information about is this new protocol that's been accepted to the official W3C.
Okay.
Called WebAuthn. Do you guys know anything about this at all?
I do not.
WebAuthn essentially allows for devices like USB security keys or fingerprint readers, stuff like that, to authenticate to the browser. And it's an old concept, but it's been officially adopted this week as part of what the internet is, what the W3C accepts. So I started looking into it because it's really nice. If you pull it up and type in a username and hit register, then it pops up a built-in dialog that says, hey, insert your security authentication device. And it's very fancy. It looks fantastic. But I can't figure out for the life of me how to use it. And I was thinking like this would be some kind of new input type where you would call it a WebAuthn input and it would pass in some kind of data to your server through SSL or through HTTPS. But apparently that's not what it's doing. It's doing a huge amount of encryption data. It's sending public and private keys all over the place. It's doing this gigantic workload to the point where I looked up a PHP WebAuthn implementation, and the guy who wrote the one I was looking at said, "Oh yeah, I tried to convert. I converted this one from a JavaScript-based demo, and I understood while writing this conversion why no one's using it. It is an utter nightmare, and no one will ever understand how to use it correctly. So here's my demo program, and good luck."
Gracious.
Which is, it's super disappointing for something that if you pull it up on your browser, the demo, just webauthn.org, it looks like it's nicely, smoothly integrated. You just type in a username right there where you're at, Eric, right where exactly on that page, and hit register. And you'll see the dialog that comes up is a built-in dialog as part of the browser. It's got that same security as a bunch of other stuff. It's very cool. And all the tech blogs this week were saying the age of passwords is over. now you have a key. And I'm like, A, that's not good. That's not the age of passwords is over.
So did I log in? I don't know. I still don't know if I logged in or not. Did I log in?
No, you have to. So you don't have one of these devices. They're supposed to become ubiquitous eventually, but they're currently not.
Well, I'm failed now.
It does not work with Trezor devices. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, so it's a cool technology. It's part of the WC3 standard now, but it's poorly implemented everywhere, and nobody has the physical devices that they need to actually use it.
Okay, well, that's helpful.
Thank you for sharing. I think I'm
Thank you.
to say.
I was wondering if you guys, I really did spend 3 hours trying to figure this thing out, and couldn't get anywhere with it.
Wow, that's saying a lot for somebody as tech savvy as you are. So
It was a slow 3 hours at work. I was doing reporting.
All right, so we talked about it last week. Let's talk about it again. This week, Facebook, right? How do you feel about Facebook? Facebook's new commitment now to being more private, more secure.
Bullshit.
I will repeat what I heard, which is that if you watch the stock...
Didn't hear you, John. Did you say something, John?
That is bullshit.
I'll say what I heard earlier, and I'll repeat it, is if you watch the stock market, before he announced this focus on privacy and afterwards, there is no difference in the value, which means it means nothing. Because if it actually meant anything at all, then the stock price would have been affected in some way. When Mark Zuckerberg says he's having ice cream, the stock value of ice cream changes. But he came out and said that Facebook is going to pivot to a more privacy-focused personal interaction platform, and nobody batted an eye. It basically means that nobody believes him, even the people who are personally invested in it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how I felt about it. I'm like, yeah, everybody just rolled their eyes and just went like, okay, Mark, yeah, you're tired of governments coming after you, so you wanna try to look like you're being a good guy now.
It's all lip service, I believe.
Well, and a couple of years ago, he announced that he was going to catch his own food for a year. That he was going to be a hunter for a year, and he was going to garden and catch his own food. He does these annual statements of intent about his own personal life, and it feels like this is just another one of those things where he's like, yeah, I'm totally going to try and respect people's privacy now. But he also doesn't have a concept of what people's privacy is, because that's the numbers on his bank account.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if I made money off of people's privacy, why would I come out and say, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. That would be a bizarre statement to make. And I mean, he would if he actually tried to implement the thing he's talking about, he would get voted off as CEO. The stockholders would not allow him to continue.
Well, I mean, he made it a public statement now, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes with that.
He can go straight to hell for all I care.
God, such a nice guy.
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of Facebook. I'm sick of the ads. I'm sick of the whole platform.
Mm-hmm.
It could be duplicated. You know, that when there were games on Facebook and that was a huge selling point, that was one thing. But now it's the most bare bones social network. Functionality has been stripped down to share a picture, share a video, share a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Someone can duplicate that and issue an antitrust lawsuit that allows for cross login authentication and cross posting.
Mm-hmm.
And beat the shit out of Facebook. The issue is that you have to beat them legally first. You have to beat them and say, listen, you're a monopoly on the very idea of social interaction. You have to open the borders.
So it's funny you should say this, because it's I talked about the book I was listening to on Audible last week of Rework, and I actually moved on to the second book, or a second book. There's like I guess there's like 3 in the series there. The one I just finished actually today was it doesn't have to be crazy at work, which again it was kind of like them kind of restating some of the things out of Rework, but in Rework, he says almost the exact same thing. He goes, Facebook will, if you ever go into business thinking you're going to be the next Facebook, you've already lost, because nobody's better at being Facebook than Facebook. And you'll never be able to dethrone Facebook if your intention is to dethrone Facebook. That's one of the things that they talked about in that Rework. And I actually, agreed with a lot of what they were saying. But yeah, John, you'd mentioned last week that I didn't share with you that I was listening to that Rework. So yeah, if you picked it up, you might want to pick up this one too. It doesn't have to be crazy at work. It's again, it's kind of a rehash. I've also been told that I should listen to the other book, Remote. That was the other one that was recommended, which I think I have queued up here as well. That Remote was this Remote? Yeah. Remote was actually a better book to go into. So I just downloaded this one today. I'll probably be giving this one a listen as well. But yeah,
I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that one.
Have you read Remote?
No, but it looks like it's targeted directly at me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's called Remote Office Not Required, which of course, we just established in an office. So I don't know if I want to read that one.
Chapter 1, if you own an office, you're stupid.
Exactly. That's pretty much how they talk. It's like, if you have a company and you have an office, you're an idiot.
Oh, wow. It is. Chapter 1 is why work doesn't happen at work. Chapter 2 is stop commuting your life away.
So
that's a little brutal.
I haven't listened to the book, obviously, but they did touch on this on in the Rework book a little bit as well, which is no secret, and remote workers know about this all the time, is that especially when you work for a big organization, and that organization has everybody come into the office, the amount of work you get out of an 8-hour day is pretty minimal, because this is the time that these people develop friendships, and they're socializing with one another, and everybody's deciding, okay, this is the time we're all going to have a meeting because everybody's here, so let's all go and have a meeting. And for a developer, this is not a good thing. So where we say we have an office, and we do, it is an office. None of our developers are required to be here, and it's kind of more of a place of they decide to come here because for whatever the scenario is in their personal life, this is where they can go to get some more, get some work done. But nobody's required to be here. Hell, John only spends half a day here. I'm the only one that spends all day here, and that's because I actually enjoy being here. I mean, I almost consider this more my space than anything else. Just like if I have
that's a little, yeah. I would like to be there. It's just I spend half a day there because I do decide to go play the Ultimate Frisbee. It's a 20-minute drive east for me, and then the 3 places I play Ultimate Frisbee are back past my house, so I would end up spending over an hour and a half on the road going to the office, to Frisbee, back to the office, and back home, where I come in for the morning, go do my Ultimate Frisbee running around thing, and then finish my day off at home, where I come back here, take a nice shower, and then get back to work.
I have this book you
save
have
that
to
time.
read.
Lay it on me.
It's called Remote. Office Not Required. Are you guys ready for my new segment?
Oh, wait, what? Have we cleared this with the sponsors? What new segment are we talking about?
It's called Rainbows and Butterflies.
Oh, god damn it. This is going to end poorly. I just know it.
You know, with the huge success of my weekly doom and gloom blog post, semi-weekly, and I have to say it is successful. It got us a new Patreon.
It did. It's paid for itself, hasn't it?
And all very much so. I've decided that we should close out our episodes with some sunshine and butterflies.
Sunshine and butterflies. I like the name of the segment.
Thank you.
There's that.
Firefox has introduced a new form of privacy protection that they're taking from the Tor browser, which I find very interesting. Basically, if you aren't allowing cookies or if you're being strict about your privacy on the internet, one of the things companies can do is something called fingerprinting, where they look at your installed fonts, browser capability, browser version, all this information. And this actually works across VPNs, surprisingly enough. So if you're jumping IP addresses, they can still track which person is doing that. This technique falsely reports the size of the browser to the server it's communicating with. It's called letterboxing, and it rounds the browser size, the current browser size, down to the closest 100 pixels and reports that. And then once the page has correctly loaded, then it expands to the correct size. This technique is used because it actually defeats JavaScript-based detection systems, where the browser itself is reporting to its container window the wrong dimensions for its browser size. So it's a fascinating technique.
I use Tor, and I've seen that alert pop up, but I never understood what the benefit to the web, what the benefit of that was. I mean, because it's just reporting a difference in size, right?
Yes, but that size is very important to identifying users, because that size, combined with all of the other information that your browser generally leaks about you, makes you one of 10 possible people instead of one of 100,000 possible people. So if you're running Windows, the maxed out browser window is going to be affected by whether or not your toolbar is hidden, whether or not you have certain extensions installed on your browser that are taking up space, that physically taking up space. If you have a bookmark toolbar, font size. So the font size of your system font can affect the final browser window size by 1 or 2 pixels. So when you combine all of that data that can be gleaned from a request, then you can really narrow down on people without their IP address, without cookies. And this technique is designed to, instead of make you 1 out of 10 people or 1 out of 5 people, to lump you in to be 1 out of 100,000 people. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a lot of big corporations use this to track people who have very purposefully declared they don't want to be tracked. And now it's going to be a built-in functionality of Firefox, which I'm excited about. So it's a win for privacy.
I don't know how to handle that from you. I don't have a GIF for you being positive.
On the other hand, it was discovered.
There you go. That was good timing.
That Microsoft Edge has a whitelist of sites that can run Flash without user interaction. So if you go to an old school Flash page, it will pop up a window that says, hey, this wants to run Flash. Are you okay with that? Well, it turns out that Microsoft Edge secretly allows Facebook to run Flash. If you're on the Facebook domain, then Facebook is allowed to execute any widget that has a dimension over 398 by 298 pixels.
I thought we agreed we weren't reporting on ZDNet's crazy articles anymore.
No, we just agreed that they're crazy.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But oddly enough, this is just ZDNet coverage of an issue reported to Microsoft's Edge, or I'm sorry, an issue reported to the Chromium blog. A Google developer discovered this whitelist permissions and posted it as a bug on the Chromium developer blog.
A bug? That's nice.
But it has stuff like Facebook, but it also has stuff like Pogo.com, Starfall.com, MSN, Microsoft, Voodoo, Poptropica. This is a list of 58 records, 58 websites that Microsoft has decided can run Flash even though it is a known bad actor.
Awfully nice of them.
Yeah.
You got a
So
business.
that's my sunshine and butterflies for the week.
Oh, good job. Good job. All right. Go ahead, John.
With that, we'd like to thank our patrons on Patreon.
Our patrons on Patreon. We're missing one now.
We're missing one.
I forgot to add our new one. Sorry about that, Marcus.
All to hear
You
your
can just add it right now.
doom and gloom.
I can add it right now. I did that before, didn't I? How did I do that before? I don't know. I don't know how I did these things. We'll add him over here. I happen to know how to spell his name. Marcus M. There you go. There, he's officially added. Oh, look at that. Now he messes everything up. Can I fit him in there? Oh, look at that. Perfect. All right, that's it. We can't get any more. Nobody else can support us on Patreon, or I'm gonna have to lower font sizes.
We could do it. One of my favorite podcasts does.
What's that?
They get to the middle of the show and they announce just their top 5 patrons, giving people a chance to get there. Well, but their show is live, so never mind. That doesn't work.
Our show's live.
We love all of our patrons equally.
Our show's live too. I don't understand that point though.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of their viewers, I think, are live.
Oh, you mean they actually have viewers? I see the difference. I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. Because they get people donating money via YouTube. I guess there's a way within the chat to do super chat or something and give.
Yeah.
And lose like 30% of your revenue.
No, because they are a 501(c) nonprofit, they don't take that 30%.
So are we, aren't we?
Yeah, right.
What? All right. I lowered the font size, so we have room for more now. If you want to, if you're listening to this and want to support us on Patreon, I have room for your name, and we did it live. everybody's welcome.
Do we have a lanyard update for our Patreons?
We do. We have lanyards.
No, I mean, have they shipped?
So here's the funny thing. He's been giving me a hard time because I've had a 5-gallon water jug in my car empty for weeks and haven't gotten it filled. He gives me a hard time all the time because it just hasn't gotten handled. Now I don't feel so bad.
Hey, I built shelves this week in the office, so there's that.
Well, you
I'm
can
like
put the lanyards on there.
I'm the shelf master in our new office space. If there's a shelf that needs to go up, apparently I put it up. So.
All right,
All
everybody.
right.
Thank you so much for listening. This has
I
been
appreciate
episode.
it.
This has been episode 144 of PHP Ugly.
Has it?
I'm Tom Rideout.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon. It was actually 143.
No, it's 144.
It's 144.
Nope, it's 143.
Nope, Eric edited 143.
No, he's right. It is 143. Wait a minute. I edited 143? Where are the show notes from 143?
Today is 143.
Keep it ugly.
It is 143. John's right. Everything is so wrong. Ah!
All right, start over. You're listening to PHP Ugly, episode 143. I'm Tom Rideout.
I started it correctly. If you go back and listen, somebody added the 144 show note column.
I did, because I thought you started it wrong.
I'm so confused. All right, it's all fixed.
Right,
that's it.
We
We have to scratch this whole show now. Did we do Keep It Ugly yet? Are we done?
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
All right, I'm stopping recording.
I'm stopping recording.
John, I don't know what you're doing different, but your files are like 25 megs.
It's the audio gate I have.
Yeah, I told him that. I'm like, wow, it freaked me out the first time I saw it. I'm like, I don't think you gave me the right file. So see, mine are still 52. I don't get what you're doing.
Mine is still like 100. I don't know what it is you're doing different though, because I need to do that if I can.
So I have an audio gate in place so that if my audio doesn't drop below a certain threshold, if it drops below it, it just cuts all audio off and it just doesn't get added to the file. Eric, you talk a lot more than I do. I mean, plain and simple. Not in a bad way. You're a better host in chat. But compared to your previous one.
You don't have to stop muting that because the show's over.
I did get to show you guys. I have an office friend now.
Oh, who's your office friend? Hey, it's Groot.
I have a little bamboo friend. I'm trying to watch it grow, and I think I'm seeing it grow, but I'm not sure if I'm killing it either. But it's bamboo. I mean, it's really hard to kill. They sell it at Walmart.
I could kill it. I've got a black thumb. It's horrible. I can't. I'm surprised my children survived as long as they have. I can't seem to keep anything living.
I've been getting vegetables out of my vegetable garden. It's been amazing.
Ooh.
Or aren't you just so special?
Well, no,
life and feeding everybody.
Mixing it with tofu.
I get stuff out of my garden too. It's where I have DoorDash drop off. Oh gosh.
We've got carrots and snap peas, lettuce, And there's pumpkins growing out there too. Only because the kid wanted pumpkins. I don't know why.
Did you guys see I got I got called out on Twitter today from Michael Dorinda?
No.
For being supportive?
It was very funny. Let me find it now. Here it is. I'll put it in chat. All right, here I'll throw it up over here so you guys can see it. I'll share it. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, it's because here you go. let me pull it up here. So, this is it's not clicking. Why is it not clicking? Anyways, I'm sharing. I'm throwing it in Slack right now.
Throw it in Discord, dummy.
Oh, Discord. Yeah, there you go. this guy rocks, man. I wouldn't mind being him.
Have you done Racquetball? Do we have a Racquetball update?
Nah, I took the week off. I'm having knee issues right now, so I actually called him. John bailed on me last week, so I was gonna give him a hard time about it, but I had to bail this week. My knee is just acting up. Sucks.
It's not playing. Why? I don't even see a play button on.
I'm taking antacids like every time I eat now.
Yeah, that's what I've started doing as well. It can't be a good thing.
No, but what the hell, dude? Like, there's a point where your body just starts rejecting food. You just have to take medicine with food.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually popped one on my way into the office.
Today was the first time I actually took one preventatively, where I had Little Caesars pizza and I just knew what was going on and took an antacid. All right, gentlemen.
All right.
Eric, that does look like you.
Does it really? Do I look that old?
No, you don't. It's not the age; it's the beard. He has just majestic beard.
I don't think it's majestic. I think it's a body. I mean, I can move like that.
You can't see the line in his shirt. His beard covers up where his shirt connects to his body. That's a majestic goddamn beard. I told you about my plan to learn all the Fortnite dances.
No, you did not. You did not tell me about this.
I decided one night while drinking that I needed to learn all of the Fortnite dances, but I needed to learn them without my kids knowing I was learning them. So that when needed, I could just drop a bomb on them. Like, when they're mouthing off in front of their friends, and I'm like, oh, you think you're cool? And then I just start flossing. Or, like, I don't know them right now, but... So I have a notebook I keep of all the things that I plan on doing when I'm high, and then don't actually do when I'm sober.
All right, I'm killing the stream. I'm sorry. That's where I have to end the stream, guys. Of listening to Thomas's plans on when he's high, but that's where it ends. See you guys next week.